Hey guys, Bobby Rio here with Rob Judge, and we wanted to talk about something because Rob and I were out at dinner last night with some mutual friends, and one of our buddies was talking about how he started dating some girl. He's really into her, but he's kind of like he goes that he's got that like sinking feeling that he doesn't have any of the control. Like she's the one leading everything is on her terms. She's got all the power, and he was going, what can I do to get it back? And Rob and I gave him 3 tips, and we wanted to share those tips with you.
Yeah, this is such a common situation so many guys find themselves in where things start off okay. You never put your finger on it, but like this guy, you end up you start realizing, oh man, I'm getting the short end of the stick here. And one of the first things that you can do, and what we told our mutual friend to do, is very simple, but ask her to do you a favor.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but
it is.
there's psychology behind it. Explain.
Absolutely, because the idea behind it's kind of funny. We talk a lot about telling guys to avoid nice guy behavior, and specifically, if you're trying too much to do a girl a favor, be this white knight and that kind of thing. Any guy who's tried that obviously knows that sort of behavior almost always backfires. It almost always, goes the other way, and it repels women. But they don't think of the inverse of that, which is asking her to do you a favor. And the psychology of this goes back to something you said. I didn't realize it, but it's
effort justification,
and it's in influence.
It's in influence, and it's a pretty well known fact that the more effort you put into something, you wind up being more invested in it. And it's a lot of the reason why we always talk about guys who, even though they realize with a woman that it's not going where they want it to go, they put so much effort in that they've convinced themselves they like her. And you're kind of doing it reverse when you're asking her to do you a favor, because normally it's the opposite, right? Normally you're driving her to the airport, you're like moving furniture, you're buying. But when you go and say to her even something as simple as, hey, can you give me a ride somewhere, or hey, Kate, can you walk my dog when I'm at work? Like anything that you have her do, it's counterintuitive because you think that it would be a burden on her, but when she's doing it, it's actually going to make her more invested in you.
Exactly, because it's like you feel good when you help someone out and you do something. I think that's a big reason why a lot of guys do nice guy behaviors, because they feel good about themselves. And you want to give her the opportunity to be your white knight. And it's just something a lot of guys just don't think about. I know even on my own girlfriend, I've had her translate things for me. I don't speak Spanish, and she's Mexican, so I'll ask her to translate something for me. And it's the important thing is you don't have to ask her some big favor or ask her to do some monumental thing, but it should be something that requires her to take some time out of her day, that requires some investment out of her.
Yeah, one last thing on it. I think there's a part of it that makes it effective is that there's something in your brain when you're doing something, you have to kind of realize why you're doing it. And in her mind, there's something telling her, well, if I'm doing this, it must be because I like this guy, or else I wouldn't be doing it. Even Ben Franklin, there's a story about how he had this big feud with the guy, and Ben Franklin was in the wrong. And in order to end the feud, Ben Franklin actually asked him, hey, can I borrow this book from you? The guy lent him the book, and then he wound up forgiving Ben Franklin, where you would think it would be the opposite, but that's how it works. So that's number one, is get her to do some sort of favor for you. It's subtle, but it starts establishing a little bit more of your power. Now, number 2, you want to talk about number 2 that we told everybody last night?
Sure. So number 2 is you really want to avoid any sort of justification, any kind of explaining yourself. And I know that sounds somewhat obvious, especially the guys who are familiar with dating advice, but where we see this comes in, because we were looking over this guy's text, and we're seeing, she was subtly maybe asking him to, almost kind of an accusatory tone. She was saying stuff like, why did you give me this advice? This was wrong, blah, blah. And he immediately, when we read his text, was saying stuff like, well, I did it because, I have a degree in this, and I'm an expert, and, I know what I'm talking about. But, and he thinks that that he's simply defending himself or showing her why she's wrong. But at the end of the day, what he's actually doing is he's just revealing his hand that he has the lower status position in this relationship dynamic.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. Like if Rob or I were working with a client, and we gave him a piece of advice, and then he's like, well, why did you give me that advice? and we start going, well, it normally works and it should have worked, and it would lower like our authority in that thing. And on the other hand, if we go, listen, that's what works, you don't have to do it, but that's what works, automatically you get that status back because you have that certainty. Like, listen, like you're not defending yourself. You're not explaining, well, it normally, like, it's like, no, that's what works. You don't have to do it, but that's what works, right? And it's all about that authority, whether it's with a girl, whether it's like in a situation where, if you're anything, you always want to be in the authority. You don't want to give it away I was telling Rob earlier, I'm having my pool done and I had a couple estimates and I go to the guy doing my pool. The other guy was cheaper and my pool guy goes, well, then go with him. He didn't say, well, I do more work. He said, well, go with him. And I didn't go with him. I went with the guy who was more expensive because he was so confident. He said, all right, go with him. He didn't explain himself. So
exactly, and just on a really extreme example, we kind of joked around this before. Like if you saw Michael Jordan on the street and you went to Michael Jordan, you were like, you suck at basketball. Michael Jordan wouldn't sit there and be like, well, I won all those NBA championships and I was the MVP and I did all this stuff. He would just be like, yeah, okay, pal, like laters, okay, and that's really how you have to look at this, that if you want to take that power back and you want to get on an even footing with a woman who, you feel that you're losing power with her, you have to be very, very careful never to just, give any kind of, rationalizations or be really logical, give justifications for anything that she throws out there.
Yep. And now the third thing that we noticed when we were kind of talking to our friend, and he is telling us, he's like, well, I just feel like it's always like, because he has a more flexible schedule than she does. And he's always like, it's always like her dictating when we hang out. It's always like, I'm always like wondering if it's like Tuesday night's not good, and we realized that she had all of the time power, right? And you kind of explained it, so I'll let you kind of take over of getting that time power back.
Sure, yeah, and exactly, and that's a big thing, is that when someone has a lower status position in a relationship, the person who has a higher status position sees that person with the lower status as their time is not being as valuable because their time seems like it's very abundant, and just like anything in life, the more abundant something is, the less value it has. So you really need to apply some scarcity to your time. One very easy way to do this is to give a time constraint. Anytime you meet up or you get on the phone or you do anything with this woman, you should be like, oh, we can grab coffee, but I got to be out by, I can only stay for an hour. Or if you get on a call with her, be like, hey, I thought I'd call you quick because, I have a quick 10 minutes, but I got to be off the phone at, noon because and ideally you have stuff in your life that makes this plausible. But even if you don't, you still should do this. You still should figure out ways where you can impose these time constraints because of the fact that will make her start to see your time as having value again.
Yeah, it's a subtle thing, and it's something that in like salesmen do it all the time. When they're trying to sell you something, they know that saying, hey, I got another call. They're like positioning themselves as being important, right? And a lot of times guys, like, we're so afraid that, especially when she does have that time power of like she's kind of controlling everything, we see her time as being more valuable because we're like, well, if I can't hang out tonight, I might not get to see her till next week. And that's such a scary thought when you're really into a girl. And she begins to realize that, even if it's on a subtle level, she kind of knows like, okay, like he's going to be flexible, so I don't have to. And you've got to be cognizant to not let that happen, because then eventually it's like anything that is too abundant, it becomes a commodity and it becomes less valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just really quick also too, that applies not even just with meeting up, but also with calling a girl back, responding to her text. A lot of guys know maybe, to wait a little bit longer, that kind of thing. But even a lot of times if a girl calls you, right, guys get really excited. They want to pick up right away. And I'm not saying you can't pick up the phone or you can't talk to her, but even if you have to like not take her call and call her back 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, just so the sub-communication is that, you're on my time, because
a great move with that. Thank me for this one, right? Is if she texts you, right? Most guys will be like, well, I'm not going to text her back till tomorrow. Or you see she calls you, right? Maybe she calls you, you're like, well, I'm not going to call her back till tomorrow. A better move is to control the timing, is like you wait like till like maybe like whatever, before you go to bed or something. Go, hey, saw you called, I'll hit you up tomorrow. And then it's like you're dictating, like it's going to happen tomorrow. Like, and then she's like, well, if you had the time to text me that, why didn't you just call me? It's even more powerful than just not calling until tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, tell her, hey, I saw you called, I'll call you tomorrow. And then she's like, why couldn't you call me tonight, All right, so to quickly review, to get the power back, or at least maintain some equal power in a relationship, number one is you want to get her putting in some more effort. And you can do that by asking her to do you a favor. It doesn't have to be a big favor, right? It could be, hey, can I borrow that book of yours? Hey, you were telling me about this. Can you send me something, a little bit more information on it? You know, hey, can you drive me somewhere? Hey, like anything. It could be small, but get in the habit of making her do you favors, because chances are you're volunteering to do her favors, or she's asking for things occasionally. So at least make it equal. Number two was that you want to not explain yourself. You don't want to justify yourself. And it's very tempting when she says something and you want to explain yourself to jump into that, but you want to just avoid and be like, all right, yeah. Like just kind of let it roll off you. Don't feel the need. Like he said, if you were to go up to Michael Jordan and be like, LeBron James is better than you, like Michael Jordan is not going to go, I won more championships. No.
Yeah.
He's just going to, oh, that's cool. Like he's not going to like justify himself, right? And number three, take the time control, right? Don't let her have all the time power. Make yourself less available. Put a limit on something. Whether if you're saying, hey, do you want to meet up today? Be like, hey, do you want to meet up today? I've got I got someone to meet at 9, but between 7, I have a couple hours before then. If you want to meet up, or if it's the phone call, like I said, don't always call right back, or even send the text and say, hey, just saw you called, but I'll call you back tomorrow, so that you own a little bit of that time control. So put those to use. Let us know what you think. Subscribe to the video, and if you haven't already watched the Scrambler video, it goes in a little bit more in depth of other sort of ways to take a little bit more control, right? To stop giving your power away and take a little of it back.
Exactly, yeah. Because I mean, so much of this, kind of a note to end on is so much of this is subtle. Like our friend probably could not put his finger on, she started having more power at this, on this date or at this moment, or at like 10:36 p.m. on, December 15th. A lot of the time it's a accumulation of a lot of different things, a lot of different factors. That are very abstract. People don't really realize they're happening until all of a sudden you realize, like, oh shit, like I'm in, like she's in a higher power position here, and she's losing attraction because of it. And so to get that power back, there's never any one single grand gesture move that you can do that can suddenly restore that power dynamic. Instead, what works is by these subtle little things that you start applying this, you start making her see your time as being more valuable.
Just to jump in, you even if you're starting to see a new girl, like you're like, well, I've already blown it with this one, or I don't. When you get into a relationship or you start dating anybody new, make a conscious effort to start thinking like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be trying to get the power back later. It has to be conscious even early on in a relationship. Like, let me ask her to do a favor, on a first date, if she tells you something, say, hey, send me that link, right? If she's talking about something, she tells you that she really likes this movie, send me a link to that movie, so that when she goes home, she's got to do something for you.
Exactly. Yeah, having it be preemptive, that's a great point.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed. Leave us a comment below and let us know what you want to cover in the next video.